GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hey, welcome along to Monday's Mark Steyn Show. What was it the first President Bush used to say?
Read my lips. No new taxes.
The crowd went wild, and then he raised taxes, which helped lose him the 1992 election. Liz Truss isn't foolish enough to give that kind of hostage to fortune. Read her lips. No new taxes, just the old taxes she got rid of 10 days ago. David Starkey and Lois Perry have been at the Conservative Party conference today because I said I'd rather enter the European do-it-yourself root canal competition. We'll get to them in just a moment. Do you like this, the sound of this new insect-based diet? There's, oh God, I've got such hunger cravings now. Oh, I could murder, a couple of thousand of those worms. Here's the thing, though. How about if we decided to test that new diet on African children first? Natalie Winters is all over that, and Claire Hibbs is back from our vaccine special. We always love seeing Claire, but we would like the somnolent British bureaucracy to get off its flabby butt and do something for her. We have lots more on the stuff that matters in the hour ahead. And of course, the most important part of the show, you can email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at gbnews. It's all coming your way after Polly Middlehurst with the latest news.
Mark, thank you. Good evening to you. The Chancellor has acknowledged it's been a bit of a tough day for him, hours after he announced U-turns on tax cuts for the wealthy. Addressing the Conservative Party conference today, Kwasi Kwarteng said it's now time to get Britain moving, promising there'd be no more distractions. Before his speech, he confirmed he's scrapping the 45 pence income tax rate for people earning more than £150,000 annually. He also told party members, rather than bashing business, the government would be backing it.
More jobs, higher pay, more money for public services. Because we cannot have a strong NHS without a strong economy. We can't have good schools without a strong economy. We cannot fund our armed forces without a strong economy. So growing our economy should be our central and guiding mission.
But the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, said the speech showed the government is out of touch with people and has an appalling record on growth. And talking about the tax cut, she said the U-turn had come too late.
It was obvious they weren't going to get this through the House of Commons. They were forced into this screeching U-turn. But so much damage has already been done with higher government borrowing costs and huge worries for people about how they're going to afford their mortgages.
Well, in news away from politics, a 34-year-old man has been remanded in custody after being charged with the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Thomas Cashman appeared at Liverpool Crown Court, accused of fatally shooting the 9-year-old girl inside her own home in August. He also was charged with the attempted murder of Olivia's mother as well as 2 counts of possessing a firearm with intent to endanger life. Consumer News and Ofgem is warning the UK faces a significant risk of gas shortages this winter as a result of Russian disruption to European supplies. The energy regulator said Britain was in a good position with very few direct imports of gas from Russia, but needs to be prepared for all scenarios. Ofgem has said it's putting its sensible contingency measures into place. The King has offered his warmest congratulations to the residents of Scotland's newest city in his first public engagement since becoming monarch. The King and Queen Consort were welcomed by crowds in Dunfermline to mark the former town gaining city status. It's one of 8 places that have won city status as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. The King said there could be no more fitting way to mark his late mother's extraordinary life of service.
That would, I know, gladden my dear mother's heart, as it certainly gladdens mine. And as you celebrate your well-deserved status as Scotland's new city, I can only offer my warmest congratulations and my heartfelt wishes for the years to come.
That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB Plus Radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for Mark Steyn.
Birmingham, where you're always assured of a warm welcome.
Tory Stump, out of Brum! Tory Stump, get out of Brum! Tory Stump, get out of Brum! Tory Stump, out of Brum!
Tory scum, get out of Brum. Tory scum, get out. You know, it's catchy, but I wish they'd held the conference in West Bromwich or Sutton Coldfield, if only to make the lefty morons' rhyming dictionary work a little harder. As our French friends would say, où sont les Tory scum d'antan? It's worth getting chanted at by morons if you're the party of Sir Keith Joseph and Nicholas Ridley, Nigel Lawson and Norman Tebbit. But for the party of Penny Mordaunt and Sajid Jabbit, I'm real scum. And I don't recognise myself in these faint-hearted, constantly cringing, woker-than-thou pseudo-scum. What have the lefties got to complain about? Today's Tory scum are as net zero as you, they're as multiculti as you, they're as trans as you, they're as clap like seals for the NHS as you. The only difference is that they want to get to the lefty utopia, which will be like Mad Max on the M6. They want to get to that lefty utopia in 3rd gear, while you hardcore types just want to floor it. Oh, and they're as squeamish about the reality of, say, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs operating with impunity in Labour towns up and down England as the lefties are. Our friend Samantha Smith, who has been on this show many times and was sexually abused in Telford for over a decade, from the age of 5, hell of a thing, and she survived it, and we congratulate her on that. But it was no thanks to the Telford Council or Telford officialdom in general. Samantha tweeted yesterday, during the leadership race, both candidates promised to tackle grooming gangs, to support victims of child sexual abuse, and to deport foreign criminals. I want to know how Truss's government will keep that promise. Indeed, both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak were rather concerned about the issue when they were campaigning for the top job. It's all gone a bit quiet since then. And that means you might get the impression that their occasional genuflections on the issue is just boob bait for the rubes. So speaking of deporting foreigners, how's that going? Well, here's a headline for you. UK government cancels weddings at Victorian Country Mansion Hotel to make way for migrants. OK, so you booked yourself a luxury wedding in that place, and now they're bringing in the migrants and kicking you guys out. If any of you know cause or just impediment why these two persons should not be joined together in holy matrimony. Speak now or forever hold your... Oh yes, my name is Ahmed, and I think you'll find I'm in the bridal suite. This would be the Grade 2 listed Stoke Rochford Hall in Lincolnshire. Look, look at that place. Hey, you guys in the dinghies headed for Folkestone, with the Royal National Lifeboat Institution ferrying you to the express check-in, that's where you're headed. You'll soon be having tea in the conservatory. No lousy tea bags for you. That will be fresh leaves of lapsang souchong every afternoon with all the scones you can eat. The rooms aren't bad. Not compared to an overloaded dinghy in Calais or the back of a lorry in Dunkirk. I think you'll have a little more room to move around in there. And the hotel, interestingly, offers what it calls multicultural weddings. So if you're a Pushtun warlord with an eye for the more fetching 9-year-olds at the Lincolnshire primary schools, Stoke Rochford Hall may be able to accommodate you. The good news is at 1,000 migrants a night, we're going to need a lot more. Oh, here's some more. Can we find a stately home for these guys? At 1,000 migrants a night, we're going to need a lot more hotel accommodation, so we may have to requisition your house. The bad news is you'll have to sleep outside in the wheelie bin. The good news is you'll be able to make extra money restocking the minibar and complimentary Toblerones for your assigned family of Somali jihadists. Where are the Tory scum when you need them? As I've said for months, the 1,000 a night asylum seekers are not just a matter of public policy. It's about whether democratically accountable governments in the Western world, but particularly in the United Kingdom, who look like bigger chumps than most of our continental friends do on this issue, whether governments throughout the Western world are still permitted to have public policy on anything that matters. Here's what Liz Truss said just a fortnight ago.
Willing to do unpopular things if you think it can contribute to a bigger economy.
That's right.
Yes, the lady's not for turning. Although this lady apparently is for turning. She's turning, rotating like a giant kebab in some kebab shop. The courage to be unpopular didn't last long. Ms. Truss's determination to return to the low-tax days of the famously, notoriously low-tax Tony Blair era is now history, mainly because all those faint-hearted, low-cal, easy-listening, pale pastel Tory scum on her own benches didn't want to go along with it. She'd have done better to take my advice and withdraw from the European Court of Human Rights, which would have provoked no such class resentments. Let me know what you reckon. GBviews at gbnews.uk. David Starkey joins us now, fresh from the Conservative Party conference itself. If there's any scum who should be run out of Brum, it's this guy, as those protesters were saying. Have you been having a good time there, David?
I had an excellent time. The conference has been completely reconstructed as far as I can see. The only serious business takes place between 4 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. For the whole of the rest of the day, delegates are free to attend fringe meetings, the kind of meeting that I was speaking at, and drink and drink and drink like there is no tomorrow, which if your monologue is anything to go by, there isn't. So...
Well, OK, let's talk about that then. Is there a tomorrow for the Tory party? I'm told that there's a fatalistic mood and that people are resigned to a reprise of the 1997 election. I've heard from a couple of the more pessimistic ones that they actually think they might be somewhere between that and the 1993 Canadian election, in which you may remember the Tories were reduced from the governing party to just 2 seats. They'd have their work cut out to pull that off. But the fatalism is in the air, is it not?
Yeah, there is, but there's another thing, Mark, and I think it's really important that we get this. You are right in the analysis that you've given completely. The Tory party really isn't a Tory party. In fact, there's a much harder, bitterer truth that we need to absorb than even you've presented. There has been no change of government since 1997. In other words, the alleged, the Lib Dem coalition, the brief David Cameron interlude, they're all interludes, the May interlude, the Johnson interlude, what's going to be the even briefer Truss interlude. These are simply variants on New Labour. There's been none of the things that New Labour did has been reversed. And the key thing, of course, and the thing that underlies everything that's gone wrong is that the financial policies of Gordon Brown remain in place. The Enronisation of the public accounts through PFI, and above all, the use of quantitative easing, which is, of course, the fundamental background to the gigantic threats of inflation, the destabilisation of the pound, the threats to pension funds. They all go back to this. The trouble is, of course, because Liz Truss is so unbelievably, totally inept, the Tories are going to get the blame for what is ultimately the fault of New Labour. That's the very fact that they've, as you superbly said, they so lack courage. They utterly lack courage. That courage which Margaret Thatcher had to say, we must change. Not simply, we mustn't turn, we must do something. We must reverse what's gone wrong. None of them, neither Cameron nor Truss nor any of them, have had that appetite. And of course, there are sinuous snakes in the grass. There are the Michael Goves slithering, spreading poison, despair, doom. But there's that. But there's something else that's going on. And this is why I was there. I wasn't there just to act as, a kind of undertaker to maybe the last days of the Tory party. I was there because there are new things happening, but they're happening at grassroots level. There are young people attending there, setting up their own events, wanting actually to talk about what a serious conservatism might look like. It's perfectly clear that the leadership of the Tory party is incapable of grasping either the real problems that face the nation now or even controlling their own party. They've shown that no government, I think, has collapsed quite as quickly as this. But there are movements going on at grassroots level. There are movements going on. That wonderful phrase, you were quoting various things from the Book of Common Prayer from the marriage service, where two and three are gathered together. Change can happen at the bottom. There is a sense, there's a sense of people, as it were, being hungry and not being fed. People want something. There's a desire. And I think this will be the hope. And in the same way, if you go back to Canada, of course, there was a remarkable rebound from that catastrophically lost election. Yes. You reinvented a party that was purposeful and was successful. I'm not a prophet. I can't possibly say that will happen, but there are stirrings. There are movements.
Well, you mentioned Mrs. Thatcher, and she had a famous line: first you win the argument, then you win the election. We've had 12 years of Tory leaders really getting used to winning the election without having to win the argument. And it doesn't look like that's going to work for a fourth time. Is Liz Truss capable of making a winning argument?
There is no evidence that she's capable of making any argument, let alone a winning one. But what's even more striking, and this is the thing that is, if we shift from the Tory party to the plight of the nation, the thing that's really alarming, of course, Mark, is that when we elect, as it seems likely we will elect, probably a Starmer majority government, and even with a stonking majority, it will be an even more complete continuation of the disastrous policies of New Labour. I mean, this is what is utterly frightening. So, bizarrely, people now reckon that the policies of New Labour have failed, but the blame for it goes on to this supine Tory party, and the result will be that figures like Starmer, who are the genuine heirs of Blair and Brown, will reap the reward, so we will get New Labour squared.
Do you think this goes back to Theresa May's famous characterization of the Conservative Party as the nasty party? I mean, I listened to a lot of this blather. I mean, what I quite liked about fellows, I mentioned Nicholas Ridley and Norman Tebbit, and I quite like the way those chaps were like openly nasty, as it were, because they thought that's part.
Get on your bike.
Yes. They thought that was part of what it meant to be a grown-up speaking to other grown-ups in what's meant to be a self-governing society.
You're absolutely right. And again, one of the strong themes of the fringe meetings that I was attending this morning was a realization that politicians have got to start telling the truth. We are simply fed constant blandness and lies and doublespeak and evasion. We are facing, Mark, you know this, I know this, we are facing a situation of the immediate post-war period. We're facing in 1945, 46. We've spent equivalent amounts of money and we haven't defeated the Germans. We're facing a genuine an actual catastrophe. If you look at Attlee in that position, he described what he thought needed to be done. I didn't agree with his prescription, but at least he had a clear plan and he had the extraordinary administrative talent to force it through. Again, if you look at Churchill in 39-40, they didn't say, oh, this is going to be a nice little doddle fighting the Germans. Churchill says bluntly, this is going to be hell. You are going to suffer. We are going to have a terribly difficult job. And he uses much stronger language, blood, sweat, tears, whatever. We are facing an equivalent kind of crisis. And what do you get from both parties? You get, oh, well, you know, and providing we do this little tweak or that little tweak, everything is going to be fine. And it is, there is a pathetic sense of the inadequacy.
No, I don't. When you talk about blood, toil, tears and sweat, none of that this time. They're going to give you a little bit of VAT off your £7,000 energy bill. Fantastic stuff. So you won't. It's not as painful as you think it feels. Thank you very much, David. Always good to get your analysis, and I'm glad you had a good time in Brum. We're going to have more on this later with Lois Perry, and we'll get to your thoughts too. GBViews at gbnews.uk. When we return, is His Majesty's government all hot for Klaus Schwab's diet of crickets? It's sort of, but mainly in Africa. We unpack that with Natalie Winters. Also, Claire Hibbs is here on the government's vaccine payout scheme, and Lois Perry has more, as I just said, on Liz Truss's backtrack. Lots more to come, so don't touch that dial. You never know what you'll find on some of these other channels. Could be very distressing. We're coming right back.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
GB News is the People's Channel, so let us channel what the people are saying. We wanted to know what you thought of the great Tory backtrack. Rax says, I truly wish she hadn't backed down. It may not have been the right timing, but having done so, stand by the plan. Oh, indeed. Stand by your plan. Give it a 3-line whip. I love that song. Tammy Wynette, Stand By Your Plan. None of that. Liz Truss isn't going to be doing any Tammy Wynette impressions. Luffy Dude says, the media bullied her into submission. Stop right there, Luffy Dude. Can you imagine the media bullying Mrs. Thatcher into submission? She had complete contempt for them, and she was right to do so. By the way, it was, in fairness, it wasn't just the media, it was also the IMF bullying her into submission too. The International Monetary Fund. I don't know why they should feel they've got the right to interfere in the domestic politics of the United Kingdom, but evidently they do. Luffy Dude continues, the top tax rate in the United States is 37%. And only kicks in at 500,000. Meanwhile, in the UK, 40% at only a mere 50,000. There is no hope towards less taxation without a spine. They need that 45% tax rate to pay for all the stately homes, the castles, the Downton Abbeys, that all these fine, upstanding, quote-unquote, asylum seekers are going to have to be housed in. Ron says, like him or loathe him, Boris wouldn't have backed down. Well, actually, Boris, I take your point, but in 2019, Boris could, hot off his 80-seat majority, whatever it was, could have just come in and restored, as I said, we're not talking about anything crazy. We're just talking about restoring the tax rates of the Tony Blair era. And Mr. Myers says, well, she's clearly no Iron Lady. That much we do know. I think iron is environmentally unfriendly now. You can't have that. You turn if you want to. As Mrs. Thatcher said, the ladies not for turning. More on this is coming up with Lois Perry. What was that jingle the lefty nitwits were chanting in Birmingham? Ah, yes, here it is.
Tory Stump, get out of Brum! Tory Stump, get out of Brum! Tory Stump, get out of Brum! Tory Stump, out of Brum!
That is catchy. Christmas #1, I think. Tory scum, get out of Brum. The thing is, the Tory scum got out of Brum, and they also got out of Bristol and Bradford and Belfast and Bute and Betsy Coed and Billericay. And for the last 2.5 years, the United Kingdom has been governed by technocrat experts. The fellas with 2 knighthoods, like that Patrick Vallance bloke. And the result of rule by experts is the blasted, ruined wasteland you see all around. The Western world shut down the global economy, paid people to stay home, and they purport now to be surprised that we have inflation. Even though a 5-year-old who read economics for kindergartners would understand that that was entirely predictable. Yet no one chants expert scum get out of Brum. We have had a near 3-year experiment in rule by experts, and it has been a catastrophe on every front, from 15-hour waits for an ambulance to the mental health of a generation of children. Slowly but surely, however, reality asserts itself. Bigger things than Liz Truss's tax cut are being walked back around the world. The Danish government has ended COVID vaccines for those under 50, the Norwegians for those under 65. Now the Swedish health authorities are ending their recommendation of COVID vaccines for children. That's to say, for those under 18 years of age. This story changes every day, even as the eminent BBC broadcaster, Dr. Matthew Sweet, there he is, he's the host of Radio 3's Free Thinking show. Dr. Sweet keeps trying to get us shut down and taken off the air for reporting on these shifts in the storyline. The totalitarian narrative of the COVID vaccines is one reason why the country is broke and kaput. As David Starkey was saying, basically we've spent what we would have spent on a major war, and at the end of the war the country is exhausted and ruined, and as he put it, we haven't even defeated anything. The war's still going on, we're still broke, we're getting nowhere. At the very minimum, these vaccines were oversold and underperformed to the point where even the mandarins of British public health are now changing their tune. Here is the Northern Ireland Health Minister, Robin Swan, joining the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Sir Michael McBride, in launching Ulster's new medication safety campaign. No, check, ask.
I'm delighted to show my support for the No Check Ask medication safety campaign, which is now expanding across all healthcare sectors in Northern Ireland. This campaign plays a key role in supporting my department's strategic plan of transforming medication safety in Northern Ireland.
Oh, really? No, check, ask. No one knew anything about the COVID vaccines. They were experimental. And no one could check because the totalitarian goons of social media, backed by the likes of Matthew Sweet, buried any dissenting views. And if you asked any prominent British figure, from Andrew Neil to Piers Morgan, they said, get the vax or you'll be expelled from normal daily life, and good riddance to you. Here's the breakfast presenter on, what is it, LBC, demanding 4-figure fines for everyone who doesn't get the vaccine.
If you willfully oppose now, you're 40 and above, £100 fine in December, £100 fine in January, £200 in February, £300 in March. By the end of the year, you'll be spending about £1,000, and that might cut through your ignorance.
The only ignorance here is from all the chumpy McArse pants like that guy who piled on. Too late now for totalitarian commissars to change their tune and plead no, check, ask. For months, starting with our dear friend Vicky Spitt, we have interviewed your fellow citizens who have been bereaved or crippled by the COVID vaccines. Vicky became the first person to be recognised by the government as having been damaged by the AstraZeneca and to receive a derisory 120 grand for the loss of her great love Zion. That's Vicky and Zion on stage there. She lost Zion to a vaccine he had no need to take, and a year and a half later they finally fessed up and recognised that and awarded her £120,000. Since then, 12 persons, count them, 12, have received compensation from HMG. 7 of them have been guests on GB News, for whatever that's worth, mostly because no one else from ITV to the Evening Standard was willing to interview them. We've seen some of the correspondence on that, and I think we might give it an airing, because it's of great insight into the craven British media. But in such a climate, how can you no check ask, as the Health Minister of Northern Ireland says? That's 12 payouts over 18 months of these vaccines, with thousands and thousands of claims still unadjudicated. So at the present rate of compensation, it will be 3 centuries before the existing claims. That's to say, if there were no more claims, if there's not 1 or 2 extra claims coming in tomorrow and the day after, if we shut it now, shut down the application system now, it would be 3 centuries before the existing claims are adjudicated. And there isn't going to be a United Kingdom in the 24th century, because by then those asylum seekers in the stately homes will be housing themselves in Buckhausen number 10. So good luck with that. These people took fellas like Nick Ferrari on LBC and Piers Morgan and Esther Ranson at their word. Now they're screwed. Oh, you can't work. Hey, just sit at home. Do you know how expensive that is? Today, Firmus Energy has just put up gas prices in Greater Belfast, plus Antrim, Armagh, Ballymena, Coleraine, Craigavon, Londonderry and Newry. Does that leave anywhere, by the way, in Northern Ireland? That pretty much is province-wide. It's put up gas bills by a record-breaking 56.3%, or an average of 847 quid per household. That's tough for anyone, but especially so if you can't work and you've got to wait 3 centuries for His Majesty's government to process your claim. Claire Hibbs returns to our show. She was on our vaccine special, and we're always pleased to see her. Claire, you're still after, you were, just to be clear on this, you were damaged by the AstraZeneca and you're basically found yourself riddled with blood clots from it, which has severely impacted your life. You've got to be careful. You don't want to end up like one of these sudden deaths that's all the rage right now. So you applied for the vaccine compensation scheme last July, which is getting on for 15, 16 months ago. What's the status of your claim?
Hi, Mark. Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Well, I was hoping I would be able to say to you coming back now that I'd been awarded, along with lots and lots of others that have claimed as well in our InVib UK, in our group. But still nothing. I'm still getting a weekly update that they've promised me because I complained. The weekly update just basically says there is no update. So I'm getting a weekly update to say there is no update. So the one of the reasons I've been told is that my case is a complex one. And on speaking to all the others in VIB UK, in our support group, our chat group, we've all got the same, pretty much all got the same response, that we're a complex case, which I find is just a ridiculous excuse. I just think it's a complex case. It's not a complex case. I was diagnosed VIT. Others are diagnosed GBS. We've all got confirmed medical reports to say that the vaccine has caused this. So what exactly is there is complex? It doesn't make sense. That it's a really lame excuse, and the excuses that we're getting is ridiculous. We've got some people who have applied the same time as me. They still haven't sent their medical reports for assessment because they're saying that they haven't received all the medical reports from the hospitals, and we know that that's lies. We know because the hospital have told these people that all the records have been sent, and they're for some reason they've come to a halt. They paid out it's 14 people they've paid out. That's according to the latest. So that's just according to the latest Freedom of Information requests that we've done on our group. So 14 have been paid out and 14 have been rejected. And they've all been rejected due to the probability that causation was not found by the vaccine. So basically they've been told that they can't claim because the vaccine didn't cause it. So as far as we know, no one yet has been rejected for not reaching the 60% disability threshold. But I mean, who knows? I mean, we've all had enough now. We've really had enough, and I'm not working. Our household is now down a whole month. A wage. We're down a wage, which we're struggling, and it's and this is because of something that we've done. All of us vaccine injured. We've all done this because we were coerced into doing this, to taking this vaccine when we didn't need to. And now we're all suffering, and we're all at financial loss. Some people are actually about to lose their house. So they just don't care. They really don't care.
It's absolutely heartbreaking because this is a time when, for everyone, as we just heard with those gas prices going up in the Greater Belfast area and all the rest of it, just existing costs you more money. So this pathetic 120,000 quid is more necessary than ever. We know the government has money for all kinds of things. It's lavishing money all over the world. It's lavishing, we're about to hear about the money it's spending in Africa. It's spending money in Ukraine. It's spending money putting asylum seekers up in stately homes. The only thing there seems to be no money for is people who are damaged by these vaccines. Why do you think that is, Claire?
I don't. It's weird. It's really weird. So they've paid out for, like you said, like for Vicky and Charlotte, and they've paid out for a few of the bereaved, and they've paid out for some for Alex as well, who lost his leg. So I think I think those that are severely disabled and is there on paper that they're severely disabled, they've agreed that VIT is causation and GBS in some cases. But I think with cases like mine and others that are in the same situation as me, like Adrian, who's been on the show before, and Martin, I think because we haven't lost a limb or we're not severely brain damaged, or I think they're sort of looking at it thinking we can get away with this. Or if they do pay out, then maybe other people are going to think, right, we can apply for this as well. You know, I'm just guessing. I'm just thinking because it's an injury. I'm thinking maybe that they're just dragging their heels and trying to find excuses. And I also think, I don't know if this is the case, but I do actually think that we're all in a category together. And I think if they're going to reject us, they're going to do it all in one go, so that there's not a drag on media and we're all not complaining. I just maybe that's wrong, but that's my opinion. That's what I think they're going to do. But whatever the reason, just let us know. I don't know what the hold up is. I mean, this has been.
This is cruel, though. You might be right that there's people like you. You've got all these AstraZeneca, Pfizer blood clots zipping around your body, and one of them can just ping up to your brain, and boom, that's it. And they figure that if that happens, you can be passed off as something that's nothing to do with their vaccines. This is huge mental cruelty that the government is putting you through, and it's absolutely pathetic. Around the world, governments are slowly backing off these disastrous vaccines because because with the adverse effects, they should never have been issued universally. We're gonna have you back, Claire, because Claire. By the way, Liz Truss, if you wanted to put some clear blue water between yourself and failed prime ministers of the last dozen years, you could actually do something for this lady. And whoever the health secretary is this week, I think we asked her to come on the show. No, you don't know. It doesn't matter. She'll be gone and there'll be some other loser in there. Therese Coffey. I'm being told it's Therese Coffey. We asked her on the show. She didn't want to know. But we're going to stay on this because the most useless government could solve this problem very easily. Thank you very much, Claire. It's heartbreaking to hear what you're having to go through. The one-size-fits-all narrative forced on the nation by public health commissars and a complicit media class did this to Claire and to many others, and it's time for you to make good and pay up. I'm looking at you, His Majesty's Principal Secretary of State for Health, Ms. Coffey. We've been reporting for weeks on the strange priorities of the globalist class to make us give up meat and dairy products and switch to eating locusts and crickets instead. Usually we attribute this to Klaus Schwab, the sinister Teutonic megalomaniac hiding in plain sight as a sinister Teutonic megalomaniac. And so we usually do it in a Germanic accent. You will eat the bugs. But maybe we should switch to doing it in an upper-class English accent. I say, old boy, who should eat the bugs? Because it turns out it's the British government that is running the pilot program for the new human diet. And you'll love this. They're trying it out on the Africans first. It was the late Zimbabwean strongman, Robert Mugabe, who famously called Tony Blair, quote, the gay gangster leading the gay government of the gay United Gay Kingdom, and accused him of a plot to spread homosexuality throughout the Commonwealth. There's not a lot of evidence of a UK campaign to spread homosexuality throughout the Commonwealth, although it might explain why tax rates have to stay at 45%, the cost of all that gay outreach in the South Sandwich Islands and Lesotho. But instead, it turns out we're spreading insects throughout the Commonwealth, starting with caterpillar soup for Zimbabwean school children. In a healthier media climate, the news that the great white bwana is feeding caterpillars to African moppets would be the sort of thing they'd be tearing down statues over. But all you hear are crickets. Crickets being sautéed and served on a bed of cockroach paste. Natalie Winters broke this story in the National Pulse, and she joins us now. I can't... The white man, he's not done with Africa. He's now actually launched a pilot program to get the black man to eat insects. Is that correct, Natalie?
Somehow, in the name of equality. I think every time that I come on this program, I'm talking about some other random thing that should not be consumed by humans being pushed on us by the globalist elite, whether it's gummy bears, wind turbines. Now, of course, we have insects. But what's so interesting about these two grants that the British government authorized is that it's not just about getting African children to quite literally eat worms and crickets and caterpillars and other insects that I hopefully never have to eat in my life, but it's the actual studies that they want to do with the children. For example, in Zimbabwe, with nearly 300,000 pounds, they were going to feed a group of kids worms and then feed another group of kids a different type of porridge that didn't consist of worms and compare them and see who performed better in school using worms as the variable. And what's the craziest part about all this, too? You talk about how the mainstream media refuses to report on this. Well, that's a given. But there was one article about it, to their credit, in The Guardian. But it's almost worse because the way The Guardian covered it, they praised it. They made it sound like it was an amazing program that was, bringing eco-friendly diet alternatives to Africa. Really, really just mind-blowing.
Yeah, so basically the Guardian's line is, oh, these lucky Zimbabwean kids, if only kids in Britain and America and France and Germany could enjoy the benefits of this terrific diet.
You're exactly right. And what's really concerning for us in the West is that a lot of the so-called experts that The Guardian quoted in this article was talking about how the research that they were conducting in Africa would have applications in the West, encouraging people like you and me to eat insects to help offset our, carbon footprints and you name it. So even though what's going on in Africa is particularly horrible, like I said, treating these poor children, which they actually single out that they want to focus on poor children as really lab rats in a study about eating insects. Don't be, too flippant, because who knows, because they want to use the findings of the study to help push an insect-friendly diet on the rest of us.
Yeah, it's fantastic, this. They're actually literally using black children as guinea pigs, and for once, Black Lives Matter have got nothing to say about it. It's quite incredible. Thank you very much, Natalie. I tell you what, Saturday night, the flambéed caterpillars are on me. Stump the Steyn looms, GB Views at gbnews.uk, and more from the Tory conference with the one and only Lois Perry, coming right up.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christie. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
As David Starkey was saying, for the last 12 years, the soi-disant Conservative Party has been entirely unconservative, except for Brexit, which was imposed on the party by what David Cameron dismissed as the swivel-eyed loons. I'm partial to swivel-eyed loons myself, at least when compared to a so-called right-wing party that wants to govern like a left-wing party, but with an occasional tax cut. And now we learn they can't even do the tax cut bit. Lois Perry from power26.org is back with us. Lois, it's always good to see you. You've been in Birmingham. You and David are two of the scum. They couldn't get out of Brum, despite their chanting. What do you make of the conference?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I was lucky enough to meet Dr. David Starkey this morning, and we were talking about Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII's trysts at Hever Castle, but I digress. The conference is, people are, they've accepted what Liz Truss has said with regards to the getting rid of the tax cut on the high rate earners, but, they're not entirely happy about it. But, I feel that she's got an opportunity now over the next 6 weeks, till November, to actually, when the next budget happens, to actually maybe bring it back in, because her opponents were saying that she'd missold it or hadn't sold it properly. So this is her chance to actually say, right, OK, we're going to bring it back in, and then she can quieten them down. I mean, one good U-turn deserves another, surely.
Just wait a minute. Hold up, Lois. You're actually thinking that Liz is going to figure out a way to bring this tax cut back within the next 6 weeks?
Well, I'd like her to. I think she needs to. I actually think that her survival possibly depends on it, actually. But yeah, I mean, as I say, there is an acceptance, but people aren't that happy about it at all. It is a shame, actually. But don't forget, that wealth is not created by government and bankers. It's actually created by entrepreneurs. And I was actually with Professor Patrick Minford earlier on today at the Bruce Group event, and he was actually saying that, and he was Thatcher's favourite economist. He's not happy about the U-turn on the tax rate either. So, yeah, there is unhappiness here, but it's quite a good energy. I'm loving all the protesters and everything. Always makes it exciting.
No, I know Mrs. Thatcher loved those too. I think about 10 years after she'd been... Yeah, well, it's about whatever it was, 5-10 years after she was being driven to a meeting after she'd been kicked out of number 10. And there were all these people dancing up and down on the sidewalk going, Maggie, 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 out, out, out. And she turned to her aide and she said, just like the good old days. The thing is, though, you have to have been a hit Prime Minister first to earn all the hooting and jeering. And you think, is Liz Truss weakened by the last couple of days?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, but that's why she needs to reverse the decision, and she needs to sell it better. Liz Truss has lots of amazing qualities. I really do like her. I've said that before, but communication certainly is not one of them. I'm not happy about the Green Levy. She said she was going to remove it. It hasn't been removed. I'm concerned that now the lefties in her party have smelt blood, that they will actually overturn the fracking stuff. Unfortunately, she has left herself open to that. And that's why she needs to reaffirm her position as soon as possible.
Well, if she reverses on the fracking, which I know is very important to you, she's pretty much dead in the water.
Who does that?
Yeah. No, well, it's very important. I don't like the way, according to you, then you think it's not just the leftish wing of the party, the right wing of the party is not happy at all.
They're not. No, they're not. But as I say, she's got an opportunity now to turn it around. She needs to put it back in. I mean, the thing is, it's completely ridiculous getting rid of it anyway, because it actually creates wealth having that particular tax rate cut. It is ridiculous.
No.
So no.
No, you're right, and from your lips to Liz Truss's ears. Thank you very much for that, Lois. So let's do a quick stump. A Twitter user says, do you think it could be a benefit to legalise cannabis? I'm not sure, after the last couple of days, whether we need any more stoners in the United Kingdom, and personally, I always prefer to smoke one of those caterpillars that they're now giving to African school children. Dan Wootton's here to macerate your Monday. What you got, Dan?
Great show, Mark Steyn. I actually really agreed with the analysis there from Lois, and of course we are going to be tackling this massive U-turn, what it all means and why I think, Mark, unfortunately this is Truss giving in to the usual suspects, the political elite, the MSM, and why that is a very bad thing. So it's all coming up, Mark.
Yeah, you should never give in to people who hate you whatever you do. That's always good advice. The best late night show on British and indeed European telly. That's with Dan, and it's all coming up after the weather. Stay safe, stay free.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update. Tomorrow, wet weather will be spreading steadily southwards, but across the far southeast and East Anglia, it'll be another dry and fairly warm day for October thanks to this area of high pressure, but it is shrinking away, being pushed out of the way by weather fronts and low pressure systems, isobars squeezing together, telling us the winds are picking up. These weather fronts bringing more rain to western Scotland overnight, where
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis,